All right, let's check this out, boys. Legacy of WoW Cataclysm by Preach.
Will burn beneath the shadow of my wings.
Chat, what year do we get a game with this graphic? An MMO, I should say. Holy!
Oh, I'm Deathwing. You have waited 2 years to fight me. Oh no, it's his dirty fingernails. Get him!
What happened just now?
Fire rains from above. Raiding is totally destroyed. The LFR is coming and Raggy has legs now. But whoa, whoa, whoa. No one rides the lady.
It's just me. I feel bad when people make fun of LFR. I feel like there's people that want to go through the raid content. Well, it's just a soy take, chat. I don't do LFR, but why not, man? Let them do the content. Maybe they have families and they just want to do LFR and do the raid, play it out. It's an easy way to do it, right? I don't want to shame them. I think it's a cool feature they added. LFR, normal, heroic, and, you know, you could do normal, right? You could do normal and heroic and mythic. It's not like you have to do LFR, right? It's not forcing you to do it. I think LFR is fine. I don't really like it when people make fun of it. I think people didn't like it because it gave you good reward back then. That was almost comparable to like normal gear, but that's not the case now, right?
Is the legacy of the Cataclysm.
Yeah, it was because of Titan Forging. But people meme on it right now too, because they say like it's easy content, but fuck it, man. Let the people play.
The biggest, baddest dragon in the world just flapped his wings and destroyed everything. New world, new design, fresh coat of paint. The Barrens is now divided in two. The Thousand Needles is flooded, and well, that was all very cool if you were re-rolling. But of course, it was the new juicy zones, new ideas. Blizzard was trying to fight back. Their sub numbers have been flying through the roof for expansions, and here we are with all this change. Less leveling. Only 5 levels.
Only
Great.
5
People
levels.
don't really like leveling that much. This is wonderful. Nice and fast. I leveled in just one night. New zone ideas. Hyjal, very cool. You know what? Screw you. Screw you if you hate Vashir. Vashir, right, is the fastest zone. It's creatively awesome. You get the fastest seahorse in the goddamn world to go across the zone. It was phenomenally good, and I really encourage you with the upcoming re-release of Cataclysm, try Vashir with fresh eyes. It's so good, and they're never going to make one again because everybody hated it at the time. But one thing that was great to see with the zone design of Cataclysm was the introduction of not only really scary things. We had Egyptian monsters flying out. We had dragons circling this massive tower off in the distance, but also comedy. We had Harrison Jones swinging his way to victory.
I like this guy.
We had quests like Gnomegeddon making a giant fat ball of death of gnomes rolling across the plains. Blizzard was on absolute peak form. So where did it go wrong? It was too damn hard. Everybody gave up. I'm not joking. People came from Wrath of the Lich King, which was baby mode. It was too easy, and Blizzard had a big issue. Their game just wasn't challenging. It wasn't investing. Their core players that had been around for years were looking to get out. This was the first time that sub numbers started dropping. Not just because it was too hard causing the casuals to leave, but also because the invested players were just done. They were tired. Cataclysm's launch was iffy at best. You see, Blizzard wanted to correct the mistakes of Wrath of the Lich King. What were those mistakes? Wrath of the Lich King was the most popular period in time for World of Warcraft. It was too damn easy, especially in the eyes of the developers themselves. Dungeons in Wrath of the Lich King, even heroics, were just being stomped left and right. It was so easy for one tank to just run continuously through the dungeon, tapping everything on the shoulder, having the mobs glued to them, and those mobs being just unable to do damage to them. So everybody just ran through AoEing, and it became a monotonous, almost endgame ARPG experience without the fun of building up those massive characters. What we weren't looking for in World of Warcraft was Path of Exile, Diablo endgame just when you start playing. Well, at least Blizzard wasn't. The dungeons were a big revamp. In Wrath of the Lich King, the heroics had become really easy, and in Cataclysm, they decided to just turn them back up. And the interesting thing is, they didn't even turn them up a lot. They introduced magical, wondrous things like having to interrupt. Mobs that reflect. I'm sure many of you remember, if you played at the time, the wonderful resounding sound
Break yourselves upon my body.
What a wondrous time to be alive. Now, in a post by Ghostcrawler where he discussed the dungeon difficulty, he clearly said that Blizzard was just unhappy with what the dungeons had become in Wrath and they needed to be a bit harder. They truly believed, as a lot of games devs did, that overcoming some sort of challenge is rewarding. It's a good player experience. And he said in that post, we don't want disorganized, uncommunicative, put-together groups having a near 100% chance of success. So surely, the players, they rose to that challenge. No, obviously not. To quote a friend of mine, it was a shit show, obviously. And they left it. They really hoped that...
I think this depends on the player. If you like challenge, you like going through that. Some people don't want that. They don't want to invest too much time. But if you play like board games too, like you want a challenging fight, right? Or for me, I like the challenge. It's fun for me.
Players would adapt. They hoped players would get used to it. And the players unsubscribed and just stopped playing the game because that's what players tend to do if they're not happy. They just stop playing. They don't whine and moan like most forums would suggest. They just disappear. And they did. It took over 2 months for Blizzard to massively nerf the dungeons. They left it for 2 months and they saw for the first time in World of Warcraft history, people were leaving their game. The numbers were no longer rising. The snowball had hit the wall and World of Warcraft was no longer untouchable. All is not lost though, because things like this, challenges, players yearning for more information gives rise. And in that moment, it gave rise to this is what I heard, very handsome, young YouTuber who was sat in a little room with a little microphone doing his absolute best to provide the toppest quality content imaginable.
Is it
So we're going to be looking at getting as much poison damage, as much hit to make sure our poisons hit as well, and as much mastery to make our poisons do more damage.
Look, man, I couldn't afford a microphone back then, but at least I had hair, right?
You still got some, man.
It's time we talked about raiding. Raiding was decimated at the start of Cataclysm, and I truly hope and pray those of you going into Cata Classic will have a much better time. So what actually happened? Well, it looks at this point, right, that Cataclysm was massively rushed. Don't know why, can't get an answer out of the devs who were there at the time, but this is the way it came across. How do we know this though? Well, let me put it this way. If you have a 25-man raid and it has ads in it, right? We've all seen that before. And those ads have, say, 12 million health.
That's a lot of health. And then
you have a 10-man raid, right? Now, using some sort of mathematics, that's less than 25 people. And the ads in that raid also have 12 million HP. Then maybe you goofed somewhere. You goofed up massively. Honestly, the idea of 10 and 25-man raiding is a pie-in-the-sky dream that I kind of do wish happened now. I've changed my opinion on that over the years because it is super, super fun, but it just doesn't practically work. 25 players have access to way more tools, way more resources, and generally have an easier time. 10-man is way more restrictive. It's not even representing all the classes in the game, and it really doesn't help when Blizzard seemingly doesn't care about 10-man at all and just leaves it to rot. Unfortunate for me, I changed to 10-man. I left Method at the end of Wrath of the Lich King and made my own 10-man guild for Cataclysm. Oof. Oof. I got World 13th, sure, on Halphus Wormbreaker, 10-man, but it was the worst experience of my life. How bad could it be? Well, we had the example of the ads earlier on, but let's just say Halphus Wormbreaker, a boss that is being pugged by 25 people, is almost unkillable in 10-man. Why? Well, it has a mechanic that stuns the players.
Is this how his video was? Dude, the old square monitor and the FPS, man. Oh my God.
It needs to be interrupted while this stun's going on. Sounds easy. Unless Blizzard forgot that interrupts can miss. And even though you assign people to do it, they can't. And then they don't realize this is a problem for 2.5 months. I'm not joking. 2.5 months, raiding was entirely broken. 10-man could not get past the first couple of bosses, and it got worse even in the 25-man structure. all of the bosses had massive, massive problems. Some of this footage has been deleted. And one of the worst things about making the legacy videos for you guys is that I know certain things happened and I know this footage exists and I can't find it for you. Such as Method versus Magmor, where Just Wait and Roger Brown kited all of the ads not only out of Magmor's room, but into Omnitron Defense's room and were running laps around outside of the raid in order to kill that boss because it was so utterly broken. I can show you this though. Do you recognize this boss?
It's kind of like GVRS, huh?
No? I don't blame you because they're not stood in the boss room. This is Atramedes 25-man, where they literally don't go into the boss room because the boss room is broken and they pulled the boss out and fought it there. This was happening everywhere. Did Blizzard ban them? No. Why? Blizzard knew these bosses were absolutely borked and broken and they couldn't fix it. 2.5 months until all this came in. Let's not mention or skip over the fact that Paragon...
How did they not know and not fix it? Or not know how to fix it? That's insane.
To godhood here. And you guys should be fully aware we are making a History of Paragon video that will be coming out pretty soon. But this is where they shone. Why? They outplayed Blizzard.
Oh,
they flat out outplayed Blizzard. They are historically known for doing this and they shone brighter than any star right here. We could see on Alakir, famously, where half the raid is not even on the platform to fight the final boss of Throne of the Four Winds. We can also see it Nefarian notoriously bringing 16 or 17 druids to that raid in order to overcome the way that boss worked.
Jesus.
Not to mention a lot of the scams that needed to take place to even kill the killable bosses. 10-man Throne of the Four Winds required a crit-capped mage. It required a specific guardian druid setup, a holy priest. Otherwise, the boss is undoable. Raiding was at the worst it's ever been in Cataclysm.
Sad.
And that's coming from me who's seen it all. But then, by the Emperor's gaze, was the world saved. Because Cataclysm did introduce something which you guys feel deep inside of you. Yes, my friends, Cataclysm brought with it the shining light of the sun. It brought with it transmogrification.
Transmog's a W, man. I like Transmog.
Okay, YouTube. Hold on a second there.
Oh.
Looks still shit.
Transmog is the biggest deal that ever came to World of Warcraft. Some would say Mythic Plus or something like that.
That's no, wild.
Transmog has literally kept this game alive for millions of players. Now, people could look good while playing their characters. The clown suits of old were destroyed, and it really made an end game for people who had no end game. If you were to ask a seasoned player, what is the end game of World of Warcraft? Raiding, Mythic Plus, PvP. And that would be incorrect for the vast majority of people who play World of Warcraft. The real end game is Transmog for a huge amount of people. For years and years since Cataclysm did this, people have spent countless days of their lives going into old content that they couldn't raid when it was legitimate and just farming the armor, collecting it for their alts, for their new characters, for everything. It is what keeps MMOs going to this day. There is not an MMO that launched in the last 10 years that hasn't had some form of transmog for armor because people love playing dress up with their characters. They like having different themes. Look at Final Fantasy XIV. You would argue that 90% of that game is transmog and people dressing up and having various outfits.
This game is more dress up than WoW for sure.
All kinds of things. And it is the key that kept Cataclysm above water. I'm serious. When Transmog came in late into Cataclysm, it is what stopped the stemming of the subnumbers. It plugged the hole. It kept people even keel because they had all this stuff. Void storage came in so they could save old items. And there is no way that Transmog isn't the biggest thing that happened with Cataclysm, despite all the raiding and problems it had. But Transmog isn't as cut and dry in that. In fact, nothing is, and I try and claim that to you guys all the time. Nothing is black and white. Transmog did cause some problems. Nowhere near enough to outweigh positives, but no longer was your new
Thank you, Sid.
shiny armor that you got from the latest raid or the latest PvP tournament worthwhile. People didn't care. They looked best in tier 2 from years and years ago. And now when you were that completionist, when you got your whole set of the new tier from the latest raid, barely anybody recognized it. I'll be honest with you guys. These days, and probably for the last 8 years, I couldn't tell you what the current raid tier armor looks like if it was put in front of me. Everything pre-Transmog, yeah, I could tell you exactly where it came from because seeing those people in Orgrimmar or Stormwind or Ironforge was amazing. These were the top tier. These were the upper crust. Post-Cata, I have no idea. I've transmogged every single time I got a new piece of armor. Blizzard stabilized after such a rough start to the beginning of the expansion, literally almost redesigning every single class. There was a lot wrong at the start, but in the midpoint, and you can even see this in the sub numbers, the additions started to slow things down. People started to stick around. A lot of the big changes, such as tanks no longer having any threat. In fact, when I started doing guides, one of the things I refused to do was do a guide on my main character. And the main reason was I couldn't attack anything in dungeons without pulling aggro. And I was worried it would look newbie to a casual eye. Blizzard then changed this. 4.2, they massively buffed every single tank's threat to like another 200% of their damage done in order to enable people to do dungeons. And on the back of that, they broke the glass. Legendaries were returning, and they were about to unleash one of their big boys. Raggy and his little tiny legs were on their way. The Fire
I like how they brought him back.
It changed a lot. It gave people focus, purpose. The new daily quest rewarded wonderful things and was surprisingly fun to do in a very enclosed area. No longer were people going all over the map to do their stuff. They had a very simple location to go, and they could be in and out in 20 minutes. This is what people wanted for their rep gains at the time. Nice function, great rewards, and a brand new raid to go with it. I want to talk about the Firelands a little bit. It's an interesting experience if you ever progressed it, or perhaps you're looking to progress it in the Classic update. Out of the bosses in there, nearly all of them are very, very easy. It was surprising. I was playing in a very, very good guild at the time known as Darkstorm. Darkstorm had been around since vanilla. We killed all the bosses in the first 4 days. We then went on to the Major Domo. Killed him in the first pull. This is the penultimate boss before Ragnaros. But then we got met with arguably one of the greatest bosses World of Warcraft has ever made in the redone Ragnaros. An absolutely incredible experience. And I am filled with joy every time I think about that. And I'm really hoping a lot of you get to relive that experience of having Ragnaros rise out of the floor and start chasing you. Also, some classic moments from the progress of the guilds like Paragon and Method, such as Sko leaping to his death off the side of the platform to try and save the raid. Didn't work, but 10 out of 10 for effort on that one. One thing it did expose, though, of course, not everything's black and white. Legendaries.
Yeah,
the legendaries are a temptation for every single player. They want their legendaries. And this time, it was going to be the casters. Dragon Wrath, Tarek Rest, duplicating your spells and turning you into a dragon. One of the biggest temptations ever. It did come with a caveat, though. It was going to follow the same quest system that Valanir had in Ulduar. Here's the problem with this. If you were in a raiding guild at the time, you'll absolutely know what I'm talking about. The nerds. Oh yes, the nerds with their spreadsheets and their calculations had practiced and learned how this worked in Ulduar with the shards. Legendaries turned, at this point, into not some huge reward that you were bestowing on some huge player. Instead, they became predictable, efficient, organized, and strategic, and everyone was getting one. Now, if you've played Legion, or if you've played Mists of Pandaria, you'll kind of be used to the idea that everybody gets a legendary, right? That wasn't the case then. They were specific. They were for warriors, rogues, or hunters, or they were for the healers. They had a role to play. The casters was a much more broad term. And now with all the fun and life sucked out of it, to the point where you could literally predict the date everybody would get theirs, and then you had to run 2 or 3 raids a week in order to have them for the next tier, really sucked a lot of the fun out.
Imagine we didn't have a loot table and we can't see what drops and no data mine and you're just playing and it drops. Like, holy fuck, right? That could be kind of sick. You're just doing it and it randomly drops. A very low chance drop.
And the legendaries kept coming this time for the rogues. Fangs of the Father. That would be crazy. But it can't be underestimated. The Firelands is nothing but a huge plus to everything that Cataclysm had done wrong up until this point. It's easy for me to look back at Blizzard doing all these problems in Cataclysm. The raids don't work, but then they gave us transmog and reforging, and then they did this, this, and this. But honestly, it's not all Blizzard's fault. Like, they really tried to do nice things. And as you guys well know, the famous saying is we can't have nice things. And there's no better example than guild perks. Do you remember the guild perks? You know, it was so good. As somebody who didn't abuse it, which might feel strange to you considering my history, but it was something that was a glory. It was so awesome. What were the guild perks? Well, your guild leveled up and it got access to new abilities. It started generating money, for example. You got things like Have Group Will Travel, where your guildies could summon you or an entire raid.
Dude, my guild didn't care about any of these. We care about the mount. There was this cool tiger mount with the guild banner, and we wanted that so bad, man.
To wherever they were. It was so good. And then the greedy goblins got a hold of it. The legacy of the Cataclysm is the name of this video, and I'm not finished yet, but
okay.
There is a phrase that has been developed in this community that is absolutely the legacy of the Cataclysm, and that would be the legacy of the Cesspool Guild. What am I talking about if you've never seen our show before? Well, the Cesspool Guild was a product of Cataclysm. Because these now guild perks could literally generate gold by the guild doing activities. What a lovely idea this was from Blizzard. You guys go raiding, you go PvPing, you do some RBGs, then the guild bank will generate money. And so people just started swallowing every single player on their servers into their guilds with no intention of guidance, structure, anything at all. Why? Because those people who were getting no benefit whatsoever from being in those guilds were generating the guildmaster gold. I'm gonna throw him under the bus.
I don't know if it was this patch or further on. I know this spam guild thing became a thing. I think I had it in WoD too, where we had a guild, and I would just spam invite people to the guild. Yeah, I did it too in my guild back in the days. But those are definitely annoying. I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah. At the time of Cataclysm, I was playing in a guild called Darkstorm before I joined Method at the latter half. Darkstorm had a member in it. Okay. Nice guy. Really lovely guy, actually, called Ulkashern. Ulkashern, hello. Ulkashern had 7 guilds across different realms called Ulkashern's Companions. I didn't know this at the time while I'm playing with the dude, and I went, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I need an hour to log through all the guilds, to kick all the people who haven't done anything this week, and then re-invite a whole bunch of fresh people who have literally either just installed the game or whatever using macros and things. Why? Ulkashern was the richest person I knew in World of Warcraft, and I knew a lot of the people who worked in the discords with money stuff. Ulkashern was generating millions upon millions of gold every week by just having every player. He had 3 guilds on our server. Ulkashern's Companions, Ulkashern's Companion, Ulkashern's Companion 2. Things like that, and he sucked up hundreds and hundreds of players. I didn't hate him for it, but I did hate that this caused Blizzard to abandon the system immediately. And now it became the norm. An entire expansion of this is actually devastating. I could tell a funny story about it, but it really did destroy what guilds were in the eyes of many players. Because a lot of people who had never played WoW, or were still sort of fledgling and finding their feet, they were just getting random guild invites via macros. And I'm sure you guys have experienced this too, and this became the norm. And when I talked about guilds in the videos I made following this, and I was like, you need to find a guild. What I should have said, and I regret this to this day, I really do, is that you need to find a guild with a purpose, a structure, because so many millions of players, literally, were in guilds. And those guilds were just a secondary trade chat. They had no purpose, they had no structure, they had no organization. People tried to make things work in them, but they were cesspool guilds. They were literally in existence in order to provide money for one person who couldn't care less about whatever this guild did. It makes me sad because we got a lot of really nice features that Blizzard had to take away because poison. It had created poison. So, Ulkashern, screw you. The Cataclysm is now stabilized. Things are looking good. And now the biggest change to the game is coming. Not transmog, the LFR. What is it going to be? It's announced. Everybody will be able to queue for raids. Gotta remember, you might be used to it now. No, this is unheard of. That's not how raiding was done. It was an organized group. You were a big sir in a little pond and all that kind of stuff to raid, but now everybody was getting ready to raid. It was met negatively before it arrived. Why?
What is this feature? Deathwing, the Destroyer Field Marshal.
Well, if you've seen our Legacy of Wrath of the Lich King, you'll know that for the good players, and I get that word could be offensive, but understand organized raiders, etc. They had no issue doing dungeons. And suddenly with LFD, they had been exposed to a side of the game they literally didn't know existed. They had no clue. And yes, I'm a part of that. I didn't know players were this bad. Genuinely, right? That's not me trying to be offensive. It's just like, whoa, wait a minute. This guy doesn't even have like, this rogue has healer trinkets equipped? What is going on?
Actually terrible.
Like, what is this? And it was what happened with LFD. So the prospects of LFR, these players now coming into raiding, was a little spooky. Little did we know then, as most players hopefully know now, is if you don't like LFR, don't do it. It's not for you anyway. But we didn't know that then. It was a new tier of raiding. Of course we're going to take part. Are we wrong for thinking that? No. You know why? Because they put some stupid goddamn tier bonuses in there that were absolutely mandatory to raid for, to the point that guilds got banned. We'll get there in a second. The LFR arrived, along with the Dragon Soul. This is it. This is the big finale. Deathwing. We're going to fight Deathwing. He destroyed the world. What an amazing experience. This is definitely going to be. My first journey into LFR, I was okay with it, actually. I got to raid and was just utterly baffled by how easy it was.
Yo, did you guys hate the Deathwing fight? Deathwing fight gets a lot of hate. I thought it was cool. I remember doing it with my brothers, too. On the ship, on the back of him. I guess the last part is a little Among Us, but it was cool. It was a cool like transition phases throughout. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. Yeah, Spine was hard, but the concept of like riding in the back, it was cool.
Honestly, I was confused. As somebody who was a mechanic's head, who was literally at that point so frothing in my own juices at the fact that I was teaching people how to play World of Warcraft and all that, I found it ridiculous. I thought this is just the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And first of all, this is not raiding. Whatever this is might as well be a tennis ball or an inflatable ball rolling around and a bunch of toddlers running around trying to kick the damn thing. It was so ridiculous. But it is what it is, and I wanted those damn tier sets, as did the big guilds. So what happened here? Well, if you look back through the history books, just before Heroic Week started, a lot of the top guilds suddenly got wiped out by Blizzard. What were they doing? Well, the process was pretty simple. Blizzard had put in these 4-set bonuses that were raid-wide cooldowns, especially for the tanks. People found a way of guaranteeing they would drop. What you would do is bring the LFR boss down to very little health and then have everybody who you didn't want to get an item log out. And then the loot table would look at who killed the boss and go, oh, you're all druids. I should drop some leather tier set then, right? And not only that, the people who logged out never got saved, so they could go round and round and round. And if you're going to do this for the whole tanks, why don't we just do it for the whole raid? Right? Yeah, well, they did do that. Yeah, they totally did that. And once all the guilds found out that other guilds were doing it, they all did it and all jumped in it to abuse LFR gear, for Christ's sake. But it can't be underestimated just how powerful these set bonuses were. Let's talk about the actual raid itself. A mixed bag. Dragon Soul is a huge raid. It's absolutely enormous. There's a ton of bosses in there, and some of them are fantastic. Warmaster fighting across the bow of his ship. So good. Hagara, Ultraxion standing on the pinnacle of things, shooting giant orbs at you. It was a really, really amazing raid with some really big downfalls, such as, well, Deathwing. Deathwing is awful in all ways. And it's really sad because on paper, and I've said this a million times on my stream, I know, on paper, this fight sounds so good. And you can see that the boss developer's in a meeting and he's going, right, what we're going to do is we're going to have Deathwing, right? And he's flying across Azeroth and he's whooshing past us and all that kind of stuff. And the players are going to be on his back and they're going to have like spears and stuff and they're going to be like, die, Deathwing. And we're going to be like chopping his wings off and then we're going to force Deathwing to crash.
You had to feed the elemental thing like little oozes that came in and blow it up at the time. Also, if I could go back over here, remember where he was saying this making hard dungeons made everyone quit? I think that's why they put in LFR. Like, it adds up, right? Him saying it's too easy and everyone's a baby. I mean, that's just wild players, right? Hard people will do hard content. Personally, for me, I like the hard content. And I used to be one of those elitists, especially in PvP, saying, oh, they should keep the Glad Mounts at the 0.1% they had back in the day. Something like that, right? Instead of the 2,400 and then you win 50 times and you get them out. I was an elitist too, but going back now, like some people don't have a lot of time to play. Maybe they suck. And I mean, suck is a really mean word, but maybe they don't have a lot of time to invest into it and they just still want to do the content. That's why LFR is like a thing, right? Bring back the old savix talks? No. I understand as a long-time player that there needs to be a good balance. Like, I like hard content, but at the same time, you can't make it too hard because there's a lot of casual players too. So yeah, I didn't hate this. It's
going to explode. It's going to be awesome. And then when you play it, you're running around with warts chasing you and standing in like little holes and then attacking a bit of his skin. But at least the second part would be better, right? Because guess what's going to happen then? So Deathwing, right? We've chopped his wings. He's crashed into the floor and he's like clinging on, right? He's like, I need to get out of the maelstrom. But then like all the dragon aspects are there and we're going to be there like, die, Deathwing, and trying to kick him off the edge. And we're like, no, dude, stamping on his face and all that. But then you play it and you're fighting an old bag lady's fingernails. And there's just this big dragon head sort of going. Whoa.
I mean, this is new compared to the other fights where you like angle the dragon so you're not in the tail or the head and it's like breathing. Every dragon fight's that, by the way. Every dragon fight is just don't be in front of it or the tail. I think they were trying to do like new stuff. It wasn't that bad, man.
In the background, it doesn't really do anything. It was the worst. I've never been more disappointed in my life. And in fact, the whole Race to World First scene, which you know I'm a big fan of.
I mean, yeah, I would love it. I talk about it too. If they ever did a classic relaunch, I want like Ragnaros to like slam his hammer and then we have to like climb up his like hand and like break off his shoulders or whatever. Like if it's like that, I don't know if they can do that, you know?
It was a shambles. Why?
At the time it was terrible. No, at the time it was even better. In my opinion, because we were younger and there weren't any like good MMOs to compare WoW with. I think they set the bar for Raid. I would like to say that. And they just wanted to make more difficult things and add in new stuff. I like the Deathwing fight,
They introduced some really powerful gems.
I liked it.
To excite players with gearing. And basically, the Chinese guilds just moved everybody from different servers, buying all the gems from every auction house, and were massively overpowered and just killed the boss. And left to an entire level of confusion we'd never seen before. The Dragon Soul is an unfortunate set of circumstances where theory and hypothetical didn't really meet in practice. And I don't really blame the devs for this because the thought is there. As I described it, is how I'm sure the devs thought it was going to be. It just didn't turn out to be, and it was a rather limp ending to the Cataclysm, which had at this point, as you've seen, been a low, a high, and then kind of a low. Now, that wouldn't be too bad if that low didn't last for 11 months, which it did. The unfortunate truth is, whatever was going on at Blizzard at the time that caused them to rush out Cataclysm also meant that they would already be working on Mists of Pandaria, and they were responding to what happened in Cataclysm with the change of dungeons and how people responded to difficulty and all those kinds of things. And it took 11 months of zero content. And again, another massive sub-drop on Blizzard's part. What is the legacy of the Cataclysm then? It's tough. This was the first time the ground shook, literally. Deathwing may have cracked Azeroth, but at the same time, Blizzard showed cracks. It was rushed. There's something so inherently wrong with how Cataclysm launched. The problems we faced in the raiding scene and the dungeons should not have been a thing. As much as I don't hate Blizzard for trying to raise the caliber of the dungeons, they should have seen that it needed to be gradual. And Blizzard has never been known for baby steps to try and correct its misplays. There's no excuse for it. They rushed it out, and they must have felt internally absolutely unstoppable, and that snowball hit a wall in Cataclysm. People were saying, no, you know what, I don't need this. Yes, it's a phenomenal game, but it's not for me anymore. And those sub-numbers started to drop and would continue to drop forevermore until we're never going to get back to Wrath of the Lich King.
I wonder if the game would be like 10 times better if they didn't have a deadline, because they try to make a new expansion every 2 years, right? To meet the company goals and whatnot. And from the past I heard, they go hard working on the new content midway from the previous expansion. So they kind of cut short, is what I heard. Like when BFA was going on, that dead time is when they're all working on the new expansion, is what I heard. I don't know how true that is, but I'm gonna guess that's why the end of the patches are usually downtime, hard. Probably can make an argument about the most video games. I mean, if it's just a game where you start and beat, kind of like Elden Ring or Super Mario, it has an ending. So it's like, wow, that was a good game. Boom, it ends. But WoW has like that longevity, and they got to continue the story, continue the expansion. We pay $15 a month, and they got to like continue to shit out content, right? So I think it's hard at the end for sure. Especially if the teams work, half the team is working on new expansion.
Numbers. But again, Blizzard did amazing things. As frustrated and bitter
do
as
they have a
my
2-team now?
Cataclysm was, that mid game.
I got this because I just remembered a little bit. Chris Kaleki, there was an interview, right? About PvP dev at least. And they don't get a lot of fun too for PvP. And they have like a set period of time to like work on and the next expansion, work on, etc.
Game, transmog, reforging, Firelance, all that was peak game. The zones were phenomenal. They were trying new things, creative things that they probably would never do again. Vashir, I talked about it earlier, but it's so good.
I like Vashir.
It's amazing. And I really hope that when Cata comes back out in Cata Classic, that you guys give it a fair shot again, and maybe you'll come back and say, nope, still hate it, and that's fine too. That's all good. The legacy of the Cataclysm is Blizzard being shaken themselves. They needed to do something. But I have to say this. I played it every single day since it launched until it turned into the next expansion, and I loved it. I had a great time. I was deeply upset. I was angry at Blizzard for what they did to raiding, but I moved on. I got going, and they started to fix their issues, and they sort of like kicked into a higher gear. Dragon Soul lasted too long, right? 12 months of no content is never good, but they'd also learnt their lessons from Cataclysm of not rushing out content. Blizzard is still learning. They're still fledgling. They're still trying to get things correct, and I don't blame them for that. I loved Cataclysm. At the same time, guys, I hated it.
Yeah, I think you hated it mostly.
Cataclysm. And I hated a lot of things it
No,
did.
I think you hated it more.
But that's the legacy of these expansions, and that's how it works. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing more from me and the team, please check out our website. I'll drop into
I
the
think
live
he
stream.
didn't like
if you're
it.
interested in picking up some memorabilia, remember, why don't you check out a display? Some of the best artwork from our in-house artists and also from Blizzard themselves that you might want to take a look at. We have a big discount coming, so pay attention for that. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
I must protect the wild.
Let's get down to business.
It's a cool call. I'm just thinking, I wonder how they like effed it up for people to not be happy. I guess there's people that don't like changes. For me, I thought the new zone and the new quest after the world shattered became a little bit more easier to follow for the new audience, because classic quest you gotta like run around a lot, right? But Kata changed like all the intro quests, and the OGs probably hate it. I probably was in the middle. I thought some of the quests were very interactive and fun and new, but at the same time, what if they went back and like fixed the area earlier, or the world healed a little bit? That's too much work though, right? For the world to heal. I think they fixed Darkshore recently, right? Darkshore was broken for so long, man. And that storm, you remember that Stormwind part? Where the druid trainers are at? That part got blasted. Dude, that part didn't get fixed for so long. And the statues in Stormwind, they were broken for years, man. And they finally fixed it. I wonder if they fixed it earlier, people would have been more happy.
That belongs in a museum.
For me, it was a story to destroying. Yeah, I guess. I like the original Van Cleef story too. Sword is still in Silithus. I mean, we're finding about it now, right? Yeah, the tornado's still there. I mean, the whole leveling, they killed it. The whole leveling, they killed. WoW is just a confusing game. It's just been out too long, chat. It's just been out too long. and they got to level 80. And in Cata, they went with 85 because too much leveling. I think leveling profession was insane too. Yeah, the whole leveling in Retail WoW is just a different game now. It's not like the old days where you go through the zones like Owen Forest to Westfall, Red Ridge, mix and match, go to Dunmore or whatnot. You don't have that anymore. You just go to like a zone and you blast or you just spam dungeon and level up. That part is missing. But I know why they did that. They did it because they want people to just do end game content, right? And I used to be the same. When I invited all my friends in high school to play WoW, I recruited a friend, all of them, right? I just ran them through dungeons the whole week so they could get to max level and just play with me. Saying PvP is the best, like you need to get to max level to do the raids and dungeons and everything, right? Arenas. So I would rush them all the time. And I think that's why Blizzard went that route too, but the leveling part is fun, man. It's missing that on Retail for sure. Tolbarad, the big world, I like them. It was Winter Gasp, and then they had Tolbarad here. And there's a raid if you win for the faction. It was fun. Those little things were fun. So you killed Retail. I guess I was one of the guys that rushed all my friends to max level instead of letting them. None of them like stayed, by the way. I think like 2 people kept playing. Chris and Ginu, they kept playing. All the other guys stopped playing because they're new to MMO and they got to max level in like 5 days. They don't know half their ability or their keybind. I like just force them to get to max. I've ruined their experience, man. I've ruined it, man. That's why I'm taking it slowly in Mob right now and I'm loving it. Yeah, it was fun, man. It was fun. Savix killed WoW drama. There is no drama. Chad, if you're watching this VOD, there's no drama. But these guys are memeing. This is a little emote they like to have fun with. You know what I mean? Being a streamer and a YouTuber is different too. I think we're one of the people that ruins everything. We make guides, and if we find anything crazy, we post it immediately. But that's how... Fuck, man. And then I need to do the content fast because I don't want the last one to do it, so I have to rush. It's bad, dude. YouTubers and streamers are ruining the game, chat. They're fucking ruining it, man. I'm not an elitist still. Not anymore, chat. Not anymore. I play with the community. I play with the guild. I've been having fun. I've been having fun with the boys in stream, right? At least we could say that. Bricked up brother. Fun. I liked Fireland. Fireland was my favorite out of Cata. I like Deathwing fight too. I don't know if it's gonna hit the same though. In Wrath, I remember I stopped playing because it wasn't the same vibe and I didn't want to ruin my favorite expansion. Like the memory I had back then, I didn't want to replay it and ruin it. I'm gonna link you guys the video. That was a good video. Savage used to beat me in arena and slash spit on me. I never spat on people unless they spat on me first. Yeah. And I would never message anyone after game unless they message me first. I could get toxic, but not toxic as... What's the level of it? I wouldn't go to the racism level like the others do. Yeah, I wasn't that. But people knew I was Asian, so I would get attacked with Asian comments all the time in arena chat. All the time, man. So I farmed in Mr. Pandaria. I farmed the little knife. I forgot what it was called, but you like chop them up. So if I meet the guy I hate in arena and I kill him, I would bust out the chef hat and chop them up. Dude, that was the most toxic thing to do, by the way. Just chop them up and they leave instantly. Oh my god, man. Let me show you guys what it is. Genji knife set. Yes. That is the most toxic thing to do arena. is so toxic. I think I could do it to like normal players, right? Or normal mobs. Look, I have it favorited, chat. It's not in my binds anymore, but man, I used to chop up so many people. It's so toxic, chat. You don't know, man. You don't know. If somebody kills you in arena and they chop you up, you don't know how bad that feels. This is how you get DM'd, you know? This is how you get hate message. Can I use it on this? This is arena player chat. We kill him and boom, you chop them up into a fucking meat. It's so bad. And then you're like a piece of meat just staring at me. It's fucked up, man. It's fucked up. You could do this in arena. It's the worst feeling. Arena drama? No drama, but yeah, I used to chop up people I didn't like. And then you could put a flag on top of that. Ugh. Ugh, that's worse than getting spat on.